Let's explore the best teacher training strategy nobody uses. This morning's lesson is drawn from the 48th verse of Yong-jig xuan-jue's The Song of Enlightenment. And I forgot to post it. Let me put it in there real quick. Don't I feel silly? Now, let's see if it's still there. Is it there? No, it's not. Let's go back over here. One moment. Boy, do I feel like a poop head. Okay. Copy. And paste. There you go. Lion cubs all trail behind. By the time they all three they can roar. Foxes who follow the Dharma king. After lifetimes of mischief they can only yap. So, you want to be a Lama. Avoid these errors. Blind and questioning indoctrination of the Ngondro ain't the way. In Tibet, a specific system of indoctrination evolved that was not practiced in India. And in it, there are, well, let me continue. And asceticism perils of a 3-year retreat also ain't the way. So examples of physical asceticism would be collecting 100,000 bows, 100,000 offerings, 100,000 recitations of 100-syllable mantra, 1,200,000 recitations of the 12-syllable mantra. This, combined with the psychological harm that comes from basically living in perfect isolation for 3.5 years. The UN considers that solitary confinement to be torture. We evolved to be social beings. This is not psychological. This is neurological. We need interactions with others, and to deny someone that for multiple units of 3 1/3 years is destructive. Indoctrinating someone in the path of being rigid and fearful and controlling and elitist and cryptic and competitive and cruel is harmful. Why? The Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything is crap, including meditation teachers. This is why most meditation teachers you see whose peers consider them to be a Lama are not wise. They're simply people who have endured indoctrination and asceticism. The Buddha taught against asceticism. The Buddha taught against blind indoctrination. There is no way to be indoctrinated and still be flexible, loving, and laid back. But indoctrination and asceticism are marvelous tools to become rigid and fearful and controlling. The world does not need more authority figures who are rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. They need spiritual superheroes who are flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. for more than 20 or 30 years, we've played with the idea that it's 10,000 hours send between a novice and an expert in any given field, even in the field of underwater basket weaving. So let's break that down. I like the idea of a 7-year retreat. In a 7-year retreat for 4 hours, you can practice 4 hours of daily formal study every day. For instance, that could look like studying at 5 a.m., at 9 a.m., at 1 a.m., I'm sorry, 1 p.m., and at 5 p.m. Now, if you're really smart, that will also include formal training in public speaking. And Toastmasters is useful. Is it full of annoying people? What isn't? I once had someone come to me, they said they wanted to become a Lama, and I outlined the studies. They just crossed the arms and said, nope, I'm not going to do Toastmasters. It's a useful tool. There are so many people who just don't know how to communicate. Why become a Lama if you're not going to help people learn how to communicate? If you're a kid, education is great. Learning composition is great. Learning the sciences is great. Learning the arts is great. The greatest way to excel in any art is to expose yourself to other artists who've come before you. So personally, what I do is I found a novelist and I exposed myself to his nonfiction writing. In my opinion, in my ignorant opinion, I feel that the best essayists are novelists because they understand the music of language. You don't even have to agree with the essay because you're looking for the style. Expose yourself to brilliant communicators and you will become a brilliant communicator. I also recommend what's going on here? I also recommend 4 hours of daily formal meditation for 7 years. Now, you don't have to live by yourself in a cave. In fact, I don't recommend that. I recommend, for instance, for those 4 hours of daily formal meditation, that can include attending a live stream once every 12 hours. And that way, when you practice on your own for an additional 2 hours, that will give birth to questions that you can give voice to the next live stream you attend. I recommend that deeply. The goal, here's something that can be useful. Here's a hook to hang your hat on. The goal of the first 3.5 years is simply mastering this subject. Understanding the sadhanas and the principles behind them, being able to, if your teacher asked you any question about the sadhanas, for you to be able to answer it without malarkey, from a place of experience. Now, from the place of rote memorization. Rote memorization is an analog of wisdom. It might look like wisdom, but it's not wisdom. The goal of the second 3.5 years is personal mastery. I know what it's like to have challenges. I am disabled as fuck. I got both autism and ADHD exacerbated by 4 factors: fetal alcohol exposure, birth trauma brain damage, CPTSD, and Epstein-Barr. Those things are a perfect storm of misfortune. I spent the majority of my life simply trying not to have meltdowns, simply trying not to be a monster. So I know what it's like to be flawed and deeply imperfect. And the test of the teachings, the ultimate test of our mastery of the teachings, is how much they help us to be the person that our dog already thinks we are. Vulnerable and open and loving and peaceful and wise, with the courage to experience the full spectrum of human emotions and the wisdom to serve them with aplomb, which is a fancy way of saying skill. Now, sadly, right now, I've spent all, if there's such a thing as good karma, I've spent all mine for almost 60 years. I'm going to be 59 this summer. I've squandered all my good karma on simply surviving my disabilities and mastering the Buddha's path. Consequently, I have not tasted of financial success. Hence, I do not have the ability to financially support, what's it called? Apprentices, no less journeymen at this point. Now, journeyman sounds kind of sexist. I would love to figure out the gender-free version of that, journey person, perhaps. So at this point, it's challenging for people who want to do this. Can you do this? This is a full-time description, of 8 hours a day. Can you do it part-time? Yes, you can. If you do it 4 hours, so full-time, 8 hours a day, that's 7 years. 4 hours a day, that would be 14 years. Yeah. So there's many ways to do it. I guess there's 2 ways. I'm not sure that costs like, oh, there's a word. It starts with C. It may come back to me later. But anyway. So there's the deal. It's doable. It's not convenient, but it's not impossible. It does not rely on magical thinking. It does not rely on patriarchy. It's not, someone's not a Lama because someone said you're a Lama. It's kind of like this. Think back to the first Matrix movie, the scene in the Oracle's kitchen, and I'm going to paraphrase poorly. Being the one is like being in love. No one can tell you you're in love. You just know. Similarly, no one can tell you you've mastered the subject. No one can tell you you've mastered yourself, if there is such a thing. You either have or you haven't. Now, hopefully you have a teacher who can mentor you and who can help you so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But there's a difference between assistance and domination. You don't want someone to dominate you. That's not going to, the path to mental health is not paved with dominance. I look forward to chanting and meditating with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent more than 8 hours a day every day studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you wouldn't have to. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. I call this practice text proto-Dzogchen because it relies on the first Shastra composed by the first teacher of Dzogchen, also known as Ati Yoga. And the reason is, over the centuries, people have obfuscated the teachings, made them more opaque and more complicated and more difficult, and then they have the audacity to indulge in patriarchy and say, hey, if you read texts that contradict the status quo, you'll go to hell. But I would remind everybody that as the Buddha lay dying, he said, I've taught with an outstretched arm and an open hand, keeping no secrets. So from the Buddha's point of view, there are no restricted texts. There are no special teachings for special people. They're all open teachings. That is how the Buddha taught. That is how Prahevajra taught. That is how Garab Dorje taught. And that is how I teach. It is also how the teacher, the author of the Song of Enlightenment, taught. It is also how the sixth Zen patriarch taught. We don't need recitations. However, they can help us I have a poor memory. That's just part of having ADHD. And so I found that I work around a hack. One of my ADHD hacks is regularly reciting that which I wish to commit to memory. So it's my goal that by the end of this morning's session, you will be very comfortable with the Eightfold Path. So we're going to play with a recitation that reminds us of love, the second fold, wisdom, the first fold, and enthusiasm, the sixth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. This is going to sound like a prayer, but it's not. Prayers to real or imagined entities make squalling infants of us all. So these are recitations designed simply to exercise very specific neural pathways that support the conventional mindset of enlightenment or bodhicitta and taking enthusiastic refuge in the teachings. The first version of this recitation is rather literal, and I set it to a quasi-triplet chant, where some lines we use a triplet, and in other lines we do straight quarter note monotones. Please chant this with me. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and confusion by taking refuge in the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. These three nouns have been so useful to so many people over so many centuries that they've earned the metaphoric nickname of the three wish-fulfilling jewels, kind of like Aladdin's lamp. The second recitation of the same ideas is going to be more concise and more figurative, and we're setting it to a bookend chant. We're going to perform it for 3 repetitions. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. So, by wishing to be of service to all beings, we are training in love and letting go. By placing our puckered palms before our sternum, we're training in bliss and letting go. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. The practice section can be divided into 2 categories. Core and electives. We'll begin with the core practices. By the way, Quick reminder, mindfulness and meditation have been taught for a very long time and have been given many names, such as Sati Pasati, Chan, Dhyana, Proto-Zen, Mahamudra, Mahasanti, Ati Yoga, Dzogchen, and Trekcho. But in the words of Billy Joel, it's still rock and roll to me. As children, the first bicycle we received most likely came with training wheels, clunky yet effective. Similarly, this morning's first meditation is also going to be ungainly. During our inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. During each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Now let us remove the first of two metaphoric training wheels, reducing the length of our contemplative exercise from 12 syllables per breath down to just 3. We're going to play with 2 3-syllable exercises. Our first one is as follows. During the inhalation, we can silently and mentally recite sitting tall. During the inhale and during our exhalation, we can silently and mentally recite relaxing. That's reminding us to generate a bit of a old vertical traction between our tush and our head during our inhalation, and to physically relax as best we can during our exhalation. Perception and relaxation are the domain of our autonomic nervous system located within our spinal cord. Within the quasi-sphere of our brain, there are many things going on. And our big old brain is kind of like a kid. Sticky of fingers, sincere of heart, idiotic of mind. And so to prevent our big old brain from undermining the perception and release of mindfulness and meditation latent within our spinal cord, we allow the brain to basically, as a kid, you might have held held the flashlight while father tried to fix the kitchen sink. The equivalent of that is giving the brain something to recite silently and mentally in harmony with each inhalation and exhalation. And so it prevents the brain from undermining the practice of the autonomic nervous system. During these next inhalations, let's silently and mentally recite, notice this. And during our exhalations, let's silently and mentally recite, relaxing. Now let's remove the second of two metaphoric turning wheels, reducing the length of our contemplative exercises from 3 syllables per breath down to just 1. During our inhalation, let's silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and during each exhalation, let's silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. Testing, excellent. Now that we've reached contemplative cruising altitude, together as a team, let us meditate as transformatively as Rey on Ahch-To under the guidance of Luke Skywalker. Now that we have completed our opening introduction, let us turn our attention to the exploration of the iconography of this image right here. In Sanskrit, it could be described as Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri. Samantabhadra, Samantabhadri, Karamamundara. In Tibetan, it could be described as Kuntu Zong Po, Kuntu Zong Mo, Yab Yum. Although it could be literally described in English as the all good ones, mother and father in tantric union. I find it to be more fun to describe it as cloud gal and sky guy doing the hibbity dibbity. And as I mentioned previously, taking a literal approach to real or imagined enlightened entities can make mewling infants of us all. And since that is not the goal of the practice, many people, there is a minority of teachers who choose to view enlightened entities purely archetypically. And that's the approach that I take, and that I feel that was taken by both yong-jig xuan-jue as well as Prahe Vajra, was also known as Gaurab Dorje. It's tough because Prahe Vajra, you trill the R's, and in Tibet they don't like it when you trill the R's. So it's a bit of the old mental gymnastics. So we're going to view the iconography of this image not as something to worship, but as something to guide our own comprehension and mastery of the path. Every time we breathe in, we automatically access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord, which of course correlates with our rib cage. This sympathetic nervous system has not evolved to support either concentration nor mind blanking. But what it has evolved to support is to simply notice things vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Perhaps that is why Cloud Gal and Sky Guy are depicted as being completely naked in their vulnerability, utterly raw to the present moment. Whether they are perceiving sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, or the like, whether they are experiencing emotion, intention, thought, memory, or imagination, whether they are experiencing the external or the internal, the physical or the mental, the pleasurable or the painful, the interesting or the boring, the glorious or the grotesque. Welcome to this morning's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Please do not wait until the end to ask your questions. By then, I will be too pooped to cobble together a cogent sentence, and you will have forgotten what you're curious about. Better it is for the two of us for you to strike while the iron is hot. Every time we exhale, Whether we know it or not, we access our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord correlating with our pelvis, as well as the tippy top of the cervical region correlating with either the top of the neck or the bottom of the brain. It has evolved to support both our physical relaxation as well as our mental release. Think of it this way. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could now feel as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. Now, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless day, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand? Perhaps that is why Cloud Gal and Sky Guy are depicted as being translucent. I should say translucent and therefore non-graspable. Like a hologram, or like the reflection of the full moon reflected upon the surface of a basin of water at midnight. We consider cloud gals, as we consider the abandon with which cloud gal sports in tantric union, we can remember that according to the teachings, spontaneity is superior to contrivance. The stability with which Sky Guy sits in the midst of tantric union reminds us that centered spontaneity is always more useful than scattered spontaneity. Functional magnetic resonance imaging studies have revealed that when we practice active concentration and contemplation, our blood mass coalesces in the amygdala, resulting in anxiety and aggression. However, when we practice mindfulness and meditation, that same blood mass collects in our anterior cingulate gyrus just behind our forehead, the seat of empathy. Perhaps that is why Cloud Gal and Sky Guy are depicted as being quite beautiful. The highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. When our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from love's centered spontaneity, our life can be like heaven on earth. Perhaps that is why Cloud Gal and Sky Guy are depicted in the Yabyum posture. Having completed the introduction and iconography of the core practices, let us turn our attention to the electives and continue with the exploration of non-duality that we played with last night, but began with Friday morning. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever mnemonic duality we have experienced during our inhalation, such as happy memory or sad memory or vivid memory or dim memory, could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void, that's collapsing the duality into the simplicity of just memory. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever duality of imagination we experience, be it pleasurable or painful, or interesting or boring, can begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void, and thus collapse into the simplicity of just imagination. Having completed our work with duality and non-duality, let's switch gears to the 4 bases of mindfulness. In Tantra, it is known by many names, including generation or creation stage, Tantra Mahamudra, Maha Yoga, or the Tibetan word Tokal, which translates as leap over. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever circumstances we notice during our inhalation could begin to feel as if they were as non-graspable, as if they were a real or imagined Buddha's paradise, or pure land, or vati, comprised only of light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever body we have experienced during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. It could feel as if it was as non-graspable as if it was a real or imagined Buddha's body of bliss, depicted in Buddhist art as being quite beautiful, yet comprised only of light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever loving desire we have for all beings to experience harmonious relationships that occur during our in-breath, could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a real or imagined Buddha's mantra comprised only of light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever loving wish we have had for others' minds to be wise, that occurred during our inhalation, can now begin to feel as if they were as non-graspable as a Buddha's mind, as a real or imagined Buddha's mind, symbolized by a one-syllable mantra comprised only of light. Now let us turn to the contemplation of the 5 elements, which is distinctly Iron Age in its flavor. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever experience of the spaciousness we might have perceived during our inhalation can now feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Vairochana Karmamudra, comprised only of white light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever experience of wind or chi or prana or lung we might have perceived during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Amagosiddhi Karma Mudra, comprised only of emerald-colored light. We relax into our exhalation. Whatever experience of warmth we might have perceived during our inhalation could now feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Amitabha Karma Mudra, comprised only of ruby-colored light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever experience of earthiness or solidity we might have perceived during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Ratna Sambhava Karma Mudra, comprised only of gold-colored light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever experience of the fluid or the liquid we have perceived during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Buddha Akshobhya Karma Mudra, comprised only of sapphire-colored light. Let us seal our practice with a bit of the old chanting, beginning with kind ethics, the third, fourth, and fifth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, and concluding with the four immeasurables reminding of the first and second folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. May all beings practice have kind communication, conduct, and commerce with spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery. May everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and confusion freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 or so hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.